Thanks, Mary Jane, and thanks to all of you for being here this evening. I was asked a couple of months ago by the Historical Society here in Johnston to make a presentation on the history of Johnston, the history of our city. I do have a lot of slides here this evening. I've got lots of pictures to share with you, and I'm sharing a lot of pictures because I think the pictures are worth 1,000 words. I mean, they really tell our story better than I can even tell it. But I want to qualify what I have to present to you tonight, because it is the history of Johnston from the perspective of the city. There's, we have a lot of history here in Johnston. And I'm not going to talk about the school tonight. I'm not going to talk about the Lions Club, except just very briefly. I'm not going to talk about, some of the other organizations in the community. I'm just going to share with you kind of the growth and the accomplishments from the perspective of the city. But I do want to start this evening, and I would be remiss in not doing so, by thanking the Lions Club for their years and years of contributions to our community. The Lions Club was formed back in 1945, according to our resident historian here, which means it's been around for about 80 years, which is just absolutely incredible. And I'll be sharing some information about, the incorporation of our city. Johnston's only been an incorporated city for about 52, 53 years. And so the Lions Club has been here in this community much longer than we have been an incorporated city. I can't tell you all the things that the Lions Club has done to make Johnston the wonderful place that we live in. But I did, as I was thinking about this afternoon, I did recall an article in the Johnston Living back several years ago where it talked about the history of Johnston and some of the things that the Lions Club is responsible here in Johnston. And I'm just going to read 2 or 3 sentences for you. It was in the mid-1900s that Johnston really became a true community. The Johnston Lions Club was chartered in 1944, becoming the backbone of the community. The club functioned as a booster club, chamber of commerce, and public works. Members of the club made improvements in the infrastructure, including roads, streetlights, and natural gas lines. I mean, that is incredible. The Lions Club did all of those things for our community. And look what we've become after all the years, and it's because of this club's dedication and commitment to getting things done early on. So with that, I'm going to get into the presentation here this evening. And again, I'm going to talk to you this evening a little bit about the growth of our community, just very quickly, the growth in size as well as the population itself, the creation and the expansion of city services over time. And then I'm going to end with just a little bit about some of the redevelopment that we've had in our community, because we are a community now that's over 50 years old, but we've had people living in this area much longer than that. And so we've gotten to the point where we've had to redevelop some of our areas, and in particular, Merle Hay Road. So John, if you want to go to the first slide here. I really love these maps because it really does tell a lot about Johnston's growth in the community. The zoning map on the left is the zoning map of Johnston in 1971. And let me just show you here, just to get you a little oriented. This is Merle Hay Road, this is 70th Avenue, and this is 62nd Avenue. Here's the interstate. You can see that back in 1971, and that was just a few years after we incorporated, most of the development in our community was east of Merle Hay Road, south of 70th Avenue. You had a little bit of commercial, highway commercial here, you had a little local commercial there. This is all residential. This is all parkway, and this is what they call sand and gravel. Compare that then to the current zoning map. Here's Merle Hay Road. This is 62nd Avenue, and this is 70th Avenue. Look at how much bigger we are. I mean, the growth over that period of time, most of it has been obviously west of Beaver Creek for the most part. We've had some growth up in the northern part of our community, both up Beaver Drive as well as out northwest where we recently annexed some land. But I think that, just the comparison of those two maps is just absolutely amazing. One thing that I will point out, and it'll play into the next slide that we have here, but I will point out that there is no Saylorville Lake here. Back in 1971, the Saylorville Dam had not been built yet. That took a pretty significant piece of land out of Johnston's area at that time. So, since we're talking about Saylorville Dam, these are some pictures. The one on the upper left is what the area looked like after they started developing Saylorville Lake. I think that picture is probably about 1971. They started building Saylorville Lake in 1965, and it took them until 1977 to get it done. The picture on the lower left is what happened during the flood of 1993. The water at Saylorville went over the spillway and went wherever it wanted to go, and it flooded out some of the roads up in that area. The other picture, of course, is just an aerial view of the dam up there now. As you all know, the dam was built to control some of the flooding here in the area, and in particular to address some of the issues of the Des Moines River. And one of the things that, because we've had a lot of flooding in Johnston, even with the dam, our staff has become just really good at working with the Army Corps of Engineers and with Polk County Emergency Management in identifying when those flooding situations are going to occur and alerting us so that we can make sure that if we're in the path of some of that rushing water, that we can do what we need to minimize that damage. So this next slide shows you what has happened with our population over that period of time, from 1970 to 2023. You can see that our population has grown by 10 times. Back in 1970, the population was about 2,200. The population now here in Johnston is about 25,000. Real quickly, some demographics that I find interesting. The median age here in Johnston is 38. The median household income is about $100,000. The median home value is about $300,000. 97% of our adults have a high school graduation. And we've become a more racially diverse community. We have 90% white, 5% Asian, 3% black, and 2% Hispanic. So we have changed over time, both in just the makeup of our community as well as the number of people living here. So, City Hall, that's where the administrative work of our city gets done. The city, as I shared with you, was incorporated back in 1969. The mayor and the first mayor and city council were elected in September of 1969. The first city council meetings were held in the mayor's basement. And I'll show you a picture of that in just a second. This slide represents some of the other places where the city council and mayor have met. The first one in the upper left-hand corner there is the Lions Club. I think that was probably the second place that the city council and the mayor met. Somewhere between meeting at the Lions Club and eventually moving into the old Hy-Vee store. Then, of course, over time, back in about 1987, the city bought what was the original Hy-Vee store here in Johnston, and they renovated that into the City Hall. As you all know, we have a new City Hall. After being a community, an incorporated community for 50 years, we finally built a City Hall building. And that was construction on that started in 2019. We completed it in 2020. As you all know, that was during the pandemic. But we moved forward and we built it during that time anyway. What happened was when we had the City Hall completed, the staff was able to move in October of that year. But because of the restrictions that were still on all of us due to the pandemic, the City Council did not meet at the new City Hall until April of the following year. So we were still doing a lot of our business over Zoom. So these are some pictures of our different city council chambers. As I shared with you earlier, the first city council chambers were actually in the basement of Mayor Southerwick's home. The picture on the lower left is what the city council chambers looked like before we built the new city hall. This was in the old Hy-Vee building. What you can see in that picture is what it looked like after we implemented some security measures. We moved the podium to the center of the room. We put some ropes up on either side, just in case somebody coming in that wanted to threaten us would want to approach the dais. That rope was going to keep them from doing that. And behind the dais, and you can't see it, but there's anti-ballistic metal, so that if somebody did come in and start doing whatever they're going to do, we were able to duck behind that and provide ourselves some protection. It was a little primitive, but it was more protection than we had before all of that was installed. The picture on the right is the new city council chambers. Absolutely beautiful. If you haven't been in there, I would certainly encourage you to go into our new city hall, and in particular in the city council chambers. One of the things that I'm particularly proud of, and I'd like to share with everyone, is that when we built the new city hall, it was right behind where the old city hall was located at the time. And to build the new city hall where we built it, we had to remove some old trees, some pretty nice trees. And so we decided that because they were old trees and they had such good wood, we harvested the wood from those trees and we built it into the features of the new city hall. So what you see in the dais there, where we sit, that is wood from one or more walnut trees that were on that location. Just absolutely stunning. There's other features in the city hall that have wood from oak trees as well as from ash trees. So those trees, I like to tell people those trees will actually live longer in our city hall than they otherwise would have on the property. So let's start with the police department. The Johnston Police Department was first established in 1971, and our first police chief's name was Dennis McCarty. He actually felt that calling himself the police chief was put him in a vulnerable situation. So he never went by the title of chief. He called himself captain. He thought that provided better protection for him. He served 3 years in that role, and over that period of time, he hired 4 full-time officers, and they were housed in various locations throughout our community. By 1987, we had grown to a force of 8, and so the police officers moved into the back side of the city hall, which was the old Hy-Vee store. So they were on the back side of that building. By 2010, they were still in that building on the back side of the city hall. The force had grown to 23, and they were literally busting out of the back side of that building. In fact, they built kind of an upstairs. They put in some fake ceiling and floor and built an upstairs, and we were just jamming police officers in every corner that we could. So in 2011, we held a bond referendum to build a new public safety building, and the bond referendum passed by an astounding 86.68% of our vote. That shows you very strongly how committed people in the community are to making sure that we have the public safety services that we need. The current chief is Dennis McDaniel. He's been here since 2016, and our current force is 34 officers and 6 civilians. This just shows you real quickly just how the vehicles have changed through time. The oldest is probably the one up in the right center there. Then over time we went to the black and white cars that a lot of police officers drove back in probably the 60s and 70s. We've gone to the point where, we have SUVs that our police officers drive now, and the newest one there is the white one that you see in the lower right-hand corner. I'll just point out to you that the Johnston police vehicle is not located at Terra Lake. I have no idea where that picture was taken, but that's not Terra Lake. So the newest member of our police force is Buck. Buck is a Belgian Malinois, and he is the first, back in 2023, just a year ago, is the first time that we actually had a canine unit. He's the first of our canine unit that we have. The first $100,000 for Buck was raised privately. Our businesses felt it was important that we have a police dog in our community. He's trained in all the typical skills of a canine. He he can track, he can apprehend, he can do searches, but Buck is different than any other canine that we have in the metro area. He's also trained in explosive detection. So we believe that that's an important skill for Buck to have because of the increasing number of recreational activities that we have in our community, as well as the fact that we have a lot of enforcement academy is here, Camp Dodge is here, as well as the State Emergency Response Center. So Buck is a wonderful little dog, and he's gonna earn his keep. We're real pleased to have him on our force. So just like the police department, our fire department has grown through time. The first volunteer department was established back in 1958. We hired our first full-time employee in 2005. So all of the years had passed before we hired a full-time employee, and that was our fire chief, Jim Crozy. 2 years later, we entered into a 2080 agreement with Grimes to share the services of the fire chief. And it wasn't until 2009 that we hired our first full-time firefighters. At that time, we had full-time firefighters, volunteer firefighters, as well as paid on call. We didn't transition to an all full-time fire department until just 2 years ago, 2022. Last year, because things were working out so well with our arrangement with Grimes, ensuring not only a fire chief, but just helping each other in responding to calls, the two departments merged. And so now all of the firefighters are Johnston firefighters. Grimes still shares in the costs, and they're still responsible for building and maintaining their own buildings, but all of the firefighters are now Johnston firefighters. What that means is we now have 46 full-time firefighters, and last year they responded to about 4,000 calls, 80% of them being emergency medical calls. This, again, just shows a difference in some of the vehicles that they've had through time. We've gone from that ugly, pukey green back to the red fire trucks again. And just, again, the emblems of the fire department have changed through time as we have gone from a Johnston-only fire department to a Johnston-Grimes fire department. And it's going to change again now because this was when we were working together as a joint department, and now we've actually merged into the Johnston-Grimes Metropolitan Fire District. Public Works has changed through time as well. Public Works started out, this is Beaver Drive, and Public Works actually started out on the east side of Beaver Drive, where these buildings are, and which are now West Jarnigan's painting business. What happened is, over time, back in 1982, they switched to the other side of the road on Beaver Drive, and that was actually a maintenance yard that was owned by Polk County. They sold that to the city, and in 1996, we built a new public works building there at a cost of $500,000. We can't build dog shed for $500,000 anymore. So that was quite a bargain. Again, just some pictures showing the difference in the some of the equipment, the snowplows that we've had since many years ago, and the new ones. You know, I never hesitate when our public works director comes and says that they need a new piece of equipment, because they take such good care of their equipment. They maintain them well, they clean them well. I mean, they treat them better than their own vehicles. And so you'll always see them out there ready to go and looking good. Library, again, just like the other departments, it's changed through time. In addition to having all of the city's administrative offices as well as the police in the old Hy-Vee building, the library was located there as well. It actually started out, library services actually started out as contracted services with Des Moines, Urbandale, and West Des Moines. In 1988, Urbandale opened a branch at City Hall, and they staffed it with 4 people. In 1992, we separated from Urbandale and established our own library and library board of trustees. And then in 1999, the voters approved a $4.5 million bond referendum to build a new building. And they passed that referendum by 69% of the vote. So this was, these are a couple of pictures from the groundbreaking for the new library. You can see that former First Lady, Christy Vilsack, was at that groundbreaking, and she spoke at the time. Over in the, on the right-hand side, you see the trustees at the time, and you might recognize some of these people. Steve Scott, Jean Hansen, Nancy Sandstow, Polly Monk, and Greg Sarasso. We opened the new library building in 2001. These are just some pictures showing the inside of the old library as well as the new library. On the left-hand side, you can see kind of the cramped spaces that we had in the old library, and then, of course, the more spacious, inviting spaces that we have in the new library. A little bit about parks. I don't have any old pictures of parks. One of these days, maybe we'll uncover some, but I do have some pictures of old park signs right next to a couple of the new park signs. Dewey Park is our oldest park here in Johnston. It's 32 years old. It's just a very well-used, loved park in our community. This year, we're going to go in and we're going to replace some of the park equipment that's there. Some of that equipment's been there for 32 years. So it's time to update the playground equipment and give it a fresher, more safe look. As you can expect, because most of our growth in the community was on the east side initially, that's where our parks initially developed. Back in the early 1990s, Pioneer donated the Beaver Creek Natural Resource Area as well as Crown Point to us, which gave us the opportunity to create a 200-acre park in our community. What you see here is a couple of aerial views, one in 2000 and the other in 2023. Where Terra Lake is today, this was the original sewage lagoon that supported Green Meadows when Pioneer developed Green Meadows as a residential neighborhood in our community. What happened after 2000 is city sewer was provided in Green Meadows, and so the sewage lagoon was abandoned as a sewage lagoon. Over time, the water in the lagoon dried up. It became overgrown with shrubs and trees, and the whole area became just a real eyesore. So in about 2014, we at the City Council decided that we needed to do something different with that area, and we wanted to turn it into not only just a passive park with Beaver Creek Natural Resource Area, but also an active park with about 50 acres of land in and around Crown Point there. So somehow, through the magic of engineering, water was put back into Terra Lake. It's not quite as large as what the sewage lagoon was before, and that's because we wanted to create that additional green space there where we could have all kinds of social activities and concerts and that sort of thing. But I like to say that, we took what was a sow's ear and we literally did turn it into a silk purse. Terra Park is a very well-used park in our community. We made improvements to, again, restore the lake, put in picnic shelters, an amphitheater, fishing pier, and other amenities. So throughout our community now, we have 11 parks. And what we try and do when we develop a new park is we go in and we meet with the neighbors and we ask them, what do you want to see in a park in your neighborhood? And so that's why you see such a variety of parks in Johnston. They have different themes, they have different equipment that address different needs of residents living in those neighborhoods, and that has really worked well in trying to install some of these new parks. And obviously what we try to do is, as the community has expanded west and up north, we try to locate parks within walking distance of all of those neighborhoods. So at Terra Park, you're all familiar with Crown Point, and again, that was donated to us by Pioneer several years ago. It's basically existed as the same building, pretty much, that it was at the time that Pioneer turned it over to us. After all these years, we've decided that we need to renovate that building as well. And so you're probably aware that the building has been closed. The renovation has started. And by this time next year, it's going to look like the picture that you see on the right there. It's going to be expanded about a third of the size that it currently is. The space is going to be much more functional and usable. It's going to be a much more beautiful building aesthetically, a lot lighter colors, and it's going to incorporate some of the new modern technology, which again will make it much more usable than it is today. This is just another view of it. This is the side of Crown Point that we'll be looking out over Terra Lake. And can you imagine the sunsets you're going to see standing on that balcony? And looking out those big windows from the inside. I see this as becoming a very, very popular place for weddings and other kinds of formal events. So the trails have also become a very popular feature in our community. We started building some smaller, more limited trails back in the 1990s. They were 7 to 9 feet wide, generally made out of asphalt. In about the 2010 timeframe, we started building the larger trails in our community, the concrete trails, 9 or 10 feet wide, and doing it in a way that tried to connect all of the neighborhoods in Johnston. The biggest project, of course, was the trail that starts at our northern border and runs over to 66th Avenue, all the way down Beaver Drive. That particular project took us 3 or 4 years to complete. It was, we had our challenges with the terrain, but it was something that the people on the north end of the community were really asking for, so that they could get on their bikes and connect to some of the other trails in our community. So we were able to get that accomplished, as well as more recently the trail along Pioneer Parkway, which again connects some of the other trails in our community. And it was something that our residents were asking for. We currently have over 50 miles of trails in Johnston, and our goal is to continue building trails until we have all of the connections that we need here in Johnston, as well as in other parts of the region. So we try and keep up with the trends in recreation here in Johnston. On the back side of Crown Point, there used to be a couple of tennis courts. They needed to be updated and rehabilitated. So what we did last year is we went in and we renovated the whole thing, replacing what was there with 2 tennis courts and 4 pickleball courts. And I can tell you that even before we had the ribbon cutting for the pickleball courts, people were out there and they were playing on. pickleball has just become a very, very popular activity, not only here in Johnston, but everywhere. We also have plans to build in the next year a cricket field. We're going to install the 3rd water trail launch. We're going to build a dog park, a 4-acre dog park. And of course, another feature in our community that's become very popular is the trestle-to-trestle bridge. Something that we waited a long time for, but being patient paid off. It's an absolutely beautiful bridge and a nice kind of entry into our community. Switching real quickly to some of the redevelopment that we've had in our community. These pictures may look familiar to some of you. These are just a couple of representations of what we used to see along Merle Hay Road here in Johnston. I think these are up more on the north end of Johnston, but we had the same situation on the south end of Johnston. Just some old, dilapidated houses, vehicles, in the yards. So we decided, some years ago, back in about the 2010 timeframe, that we needed to start cleaning up what was happening on Merle Hay and Johnston and redeveloping it. With a little planning and a little vision, what you saw there is now this. This is the town center. A couple of aerial views of the town center. As part of our planning, what we decided that we needed to do was to, as a city, acquire the 18 acres around City Hall and work with developers then to develop that land. As you know, the City Hall's been built. The Grand Stay Hotel is going up. The commercial buildings on the corner have been there for now a year and a half. The businesses that are in those commercial buildings are just going like gangbusters. And there's room on the north and northwest side to build some more commercial buildings. Town Center has become a very, very popular place for residents in our community, not only because of the buildings that have been built there and the people that it draws, but also because of the activities that are taking place in the yard every season of the year, whether it's the concerts in the summer or the holidays in Johnston in the winter. It's just become it's become what we envisioned it could be, and that is the social gathering place for our community. I like to say that we as a community, again, we're still young, we're only 50 years old, but we never had a downtown in Johnston. This is our downtown. So, going to the other end of Merle Hay Road, again, some pictures that should bring back memories. At one time, on the east side of Merle Hay, as you drive into the entrance of Johnston, there used to be a pretty thriving little hotel and diner there. And you probably all remember eating there and having some good food. Well, over time, that things changed. The hotel was abandoned. The diner didn't operate any longer. The whole property became, in a very deteriorated state. And when I became mayor, one of the first things that I promised was that we were going to get that hotel torn down. It took a little longer, and at times I would tell people I just wish lightning would strike it. And then I was told that it was made out of concrete blocks, so even if lightning struck it, it would still be there. But over time, we've set the vision, we developed the plans, we've worked with developers, and what was the old hotel and diner will soon be Palmer's Golf and Family Entertainment District. These are just some renditions of what will be built there. Bombers will have not only indoor golf bays, but they will also offer axe throwing, bowling. They will also have some pickleball courts. The plan is to also build a hotel on that location as well as some restaurants. And so that is underway, and it won't be too long, and we'll see some of that being done. It'll probably be built in phases, but This is the ultimate plan. So on the other side of Merle Hay Road, we had an equally bad situation. Imperial Storage was down there behind Polly Eyes. It was not only unsightly. I just suspect that there were probably dangerous things going on there. So we needed to get that business out of there, and again, working with developers, we were able to acquire that property to make sure that we had some control over what happened there, and eventually were able to get the building removed and prepared for some construction there. So again, this is what it will look like over some period of time. The foundation for Ignite is being poured right now, and I'm told that their main building, the 200,000 square foot sporting facility, will be finished and up by this time next year. So you'll see a lot of activity happening down there. Like Bombers on the other side, that's not where they're going to stop. They also have plans to build out some retail, what they're calling Project Rally. So they'll have other kinds of amenities and recreational opportunities there as well. But the idea with Ignite is that because it's going to be a large space with many different kinds of courts and fields, as well as the largest indoor running track in Iowa, the idea behind it is that they'll be able to draw national kinds of sporting events here to Johnston, and to really help with some of the other development that we have along the Merle Hay Road. And that's one of the things that's really exciting about what's happening both on the south end as well as the north end of Merle Hay Road. With a little bit of stimulus, with a little bit of imagination and working with the right people, we've gotten some things started, and we're going to see a lot more development along Merle Hay Road in the next several years, just because these things are happening. Well, this has been a real pleasure. Thank you so much for being such a great audience this evening.